Attraction to carbon sequestration, and to explain to what you envision, like, and how much would something like that cost, or like, should be people devote money to this? Like, there's plans out there in Alberta, I think, for billions of dollars of investment in technology that I don't think has ever been.
Yeah, we're not talking the Alberta plan out there is a very injecting CO2, liquid CO2 into geologic structures. We don't have any plans to do that in Ontario that I'm aware of. I'm not sure we even have the geologic structures. So that's not it. No, we're talking about, just farmer soil. And if you look at farmer soil, most people have a sense that you see rich, dark soil, it's richer in organic matter and has some inherent characteristics that make it very fertile. And if you look at some of our agricultural soils that are more commonly used, fertilized with agricultural chemistries, they're very pale in color. And they look like mineral soil. Their organic matter content is very low. There are different agricultural techniques. Organic farming is one, but there are other things besides organic farming that can increase the percentage of soil carbon in the soil. It improves your crop yields, improves the growth characteristics, reduces the demand for fertilizer, so it has other ancillary benefits to the initiative. But its big thing is for this discussion is that you can store tons and tons and tons of organic matter in that soil. In fact, there used to, when we first came to break those soils and cut the trees, those soils had much more organic matter in them, and it's a matter of just restoring some of the historic.
How do you go about doing that?
Well, it has a lot to do with there are some options outlined, and we're getting into details here, but certainly putting compost and manure back in line, and biochar is discussed in this report. Biochar is an ancient technology that we're now looking at, and it's been showing very good promise to increase organic and sequester organic matter in soil.
Commissioner, I'm trying to figure out when we're getting out of a recession where pocketbook issues are top of mind, when people are trying to get by towards the end of the month to have enough money to get by. How do you justify, how is it possible to sell a story to people like that when a price on carbon isn't necessarily going to bring costs up in pretty much every aspect of their life? How can you sell them on the benefit of that? I'm not quite sure I understand how you can.
Well, I mean, price on carbon is the generic term. There are many plans, but just talk about one, simple one. You can put a price on carbon and refund the money back in the form of taxation, so that the price is paid on consumption of high carbon goods and services, and the money is refunded. It can be economically neutral. You can get a check back from the government. There's a simple model. So how do we sell that? I think that can be sold.
I find that interesting. How would you?
Oh, there's numerous models been proposed around basically their variations on that theme. You put a price, let's say a fee associated with something that has a high carbon footprint. Let's say, I don't know, the purchase of gasoline would be the extreme example. And then you simply collect that money and then refund it back to the people in the form of direct checks back, because it means that the people are paying at the point. The people who consume a lot of gasoline see that price pinch at that point, and find ways to be more efficient in gasoline. Businesses find ways to increase their efficiency or burn less gasoline because they still get the check back.
What's the incentive if I just get the check back?
Because if you use less, if I don't burn as much gas as you, I still get the same check. You can feed the money back into the economy, but you penalize the goods and services that have a higher carbon footprint associated with them.
I also want to ask you about what studies do you refer to, or can you refer to suggest that there's a direct correlation between tolls and reduction in traffic?
Well, we can. There's quite a bit of. I cited some in my last energy report, I think, or is it the greenhouse gas report last year? We have such studies, but I mean the classic one is the London congestion charge. I mean that's the one. It's well known and widely discussed, and the reduction in traffic that ensued when they put the congestion charge. That's not a toll per se. It was an area congestion charge, but it's the same thing. If you put a cost on traveling, you see a corresponding reduction. But I can give you another very practical example, and that is in Toronto, we have two major highways that go east-west across the city. One is the 401, and one is the 407. And I on most mornings at about 8 o'clock in the morning, one is not moving very fast, and the other is, is moving quite smoothly, and one has a toll on it. We don't have to go very far to see how toll roads work in Toronto.
Can you, what is the price, I should know this, but I don't, what is on the price of a liter of gasoline and carbon tax in BC?
Oh, you got me there. I know the carbon tax, it was $20 going to 30 per ton, and I forgot what that is, and it's a few cents per gallon, per liter. It's like a figure like 10 or 12. I don't recall the actual figure, but it's $20 per ton of carbon going to 30. That's the rate.
Has the government turned its back on greenhouse gases? You know, trying, I mean, they did some things, but with, as my colleagues referred to, pocketbook issues and other matters of interest in the economy. Has this government and other governments, particularly this government, has it just more or less thrown up its hands and said there's nothing we can do?
Well, we certainly lost the momentum on the CCAP plan. You know, we had many more tools in the toolkit and many things that have been falling away. And you know, I cited the example of the 3 programs that were cut in the transportation sector this year. I find that very odd. So certainly they've lost momentum, or I don't know. I wouldn't say they've turned their back, but I would say they've certainly lost momentum and let some of their tools fall away, which you know, questions their resolve, I suppose you'd have to say.
Is there a party you don't want to see winning the election?
I can't comment on that. I thoroughly enjoy my interaction with all 107 members of the Legislative Assembly, I'm sure, and they all work in the best interest of the people of Ontario.
You made the reference to the fact that, you know, you can say that, you know, climate change doesn't exist and there's nothing you can do to change those people's mind. But as you've witnessed, and we've all witnessed it, you know, traumatic events, weather events across this country and others, how much longer before it affects us?
Well, it's already, you know, it's already affecting us, and as we've seen, us, I mean, Southern Ontario, or us. I guess how I mean, we've got these extreme events, and look what's happening in Quebec and Manitoba on both sides of us, and Saskatchewan. You know, I expect there to be a major fire season in Ontario sooner or later. We've been sort of getting away with that. We've had the big fires in BC and Alberta, but we're due for a major fire year, and it'll be only increase in severity when we get the hot, dry year coming. It might be 2012 because that's an El Nino year, but you know, we can't escape these things. And look back, we've had, you know, we've had the ice storm, we've had the flooding, multiple floods in Peterborough and Stratford, I believe, and you know, we've had our share. We had all the wind incidents in 2006, major windstorms, severe damage. We've been lucky lately, but it's all around us.
The locust next, I guess.
Sorry?
Locust next.
Well, fortunately, although locusts are affected by weather in Africa, they're not going to happen here.
Commissioner, I just wanted to ask you more about carbon pricing and the effect on industry and jobs. There's a mining boom going on in Northern Ontario.
Sure.
After a period of job losses, mining companies have shut down processing plants, citing that this jurisdiction isn't competitive, energy costs and that kind of thing. So I'm just wondering how you make carbon pricing palatable, especially in regions of the province where they're dependent on resource.
Well, I think you know, you make it palatable because, first of all, you know, it's not me alone here. There are major industry groups that are calling for us, major captains of energy, and they're on record as saying they want a price on carbon. So there are two aspects. One is there are real costs that you mitigate if you become more efficient. You can increase your energy efficiency by pricing carbon. The other is the reality of what's happening in the world. The world is going to a carbon price sooner or later. Europe's already been there for a while, and the pressure's on. We see all sorts of interesting things happening in the United States, although they overtly sort of deny it. There's certainly lots going on there in terms of exploring the pricing of carbon. So we don't want Canada to be out of step with international initiatives. We don't want to be caught the only jurisdiction around that's not prepared to put a price on carbon. So those are the two aspects. There are real economic benefits, and secondly, we'd be out of step with the rest of the world, and that's something we don't want to be as a major exporting country.
So what are the economic benefits?
Oh, well, the associated cost, first of all, there's right off the bat, there's energy efficiency. And we talk a lot about labor productivity. If you notice over the years, I always talk about labor productivity. Rarely we talk about energy productivity, but it really is the same as important. And that is, can we get more goods and services out of the value of a unit of energy? And carbon productivity. Can we get more goods and services out of a unit of carbon? There are benefits in energy saving immediately. And I think that's the first one. But then in terms of long-term damage, mitigating and slowing down the impacts of climate change or societal impacts are there. And we adaptation to the kind of extreme weather events we're experiencing, we're behind the 8 ball already, right? Look at in Manitoba, we got by this year. Mississippi the Mississippi area had a very near miss. They were almost flooded beyond the entire infrastructure they built over these last 50 or 60 years. So there are huge societal costs to be avoided. That's why it's a government-level program. But as well, there are immediate returns. If you become more carbon efficient, invariably there are energy benefits to it in a time of increasing energy prices. Good. Thank you.